Welcome, everybody, to another old-fashioned Bible study. We're going to start tonight out with some prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for leading, guiding, directing us. We just ask that you pour out your spirit, your truth, and your doctrine, Father, onto your servants, as is recorded in the book of Joel, upon your old men and your young women, Father, which covers everybody, Father. And we love you. We ask that you lead, guide, and direct us, Father, into your word in Yeshua's name. Amen. So, bit of an update on the website. So, if you go to our website, propheticbiblestudies.com, you can go to any study that we post here under the studies tab. And we have a great selection under critical studies, which is studies that we consider really important. The false rapture. Many people believe in the rapture, and you can go here and see why we don't believe in the rapture. And what we believe that time is a time of deception. It's not a time of torture, murder, and mayhem, as is commonly thought and taught by pastors today. The 5 months of Revelation 9, that's a special study that Pastor Arnold Murray of the Shepherd's Chapel presented, that the tribulation has been shortened from a 7-year period, commonly taught by pastors and preachers, down to a 5-month period, but divided in half, so that the Antichrist only has half of that 5 months, just as he only had half of the 7 years. So it's the same pattern, but now the whole time period is shortened. So that is a special study there. This was a study done by me, Prophetic Timeline. This one is basically that there's going to be another Exodus, and that we're in the last generation, the fig tree generation that Jesus spoke of. So that's critical studies. And then topical studies. We have some really good topical studies that are recent. This one, we just added Time of the Gentiles and the Passover study. The Passover study I wanted to show you because it goes over the general timing of the Passover. When Jesus had this meal with the brethren, before the disciples, before he was taken by Pilate that night. And that night he was mocked and spat upon. And it says, and I think Matthew 20:19, he was mocked, he was spat upon, he was cursed, he was beat on that Thursday night. And that began the beginning of the 3 days, which was a figure of speech. Each part of a day, or the crucifixion day, would have been day 1, which was a Friday. It's recorded in the Bible of the Aramaic. And all of that is covered in this study, that 3-day period. And he rose on the 3rd day, not the 4th day. So we do cover that in the importance of the Passover. I wanted to show that. I did add a couple of videos in the Septuagint study, because Jesus did teach from the Septuagint, and Pastor Arnold Murray, this is one of the videos I added, a little clip.
Have today, excuse me, as far as a Bible is concerned, the Septuagint, from which it was taken from older manuscripts than, say, like was the King James. So many times scholars, if they have a problem, the Septuagint being in Greek, they will go to the Septuagint and translate the Greek back and understand, maybe with a better understanding, because it comes from an older set of manuscripts.
That's basically a short clip, a pastor supporting the Septuagint. And then this one, he talks about how he believes in Septuagint in the book of Daniel, which is special. It's a special, different condition, because there was a hidden Greek version of Daniel that's been hidden for many, many millennia until this last century, where it has come to light in English, specifically this last decade, actually. So, and then so I just go over some main points about the Septuagint and the book of Daniel. which is really cool. And then we have, so I want to show you the Passover study. And of course, here's Pastor talking about Ishtar, Easter, which is a pagan holiday. We don't celebrate that. He says it's not in the Greek or the Aramaic. He says that in this clip. You can understand the timing. It started, the Passover lamb was killed on Nisan 14, which would have been a Friday. And that's when the lamb was killed, but he had to be taken down off the cross because they didn't want his body up there during the Sabbath, which would have been the 15th, the high holy day of the year, the high Sabbath Passover. And Pastor talks about these dates in this video. And this is just a general overlay. Here's the Aramaic Bible saying it was Friday that he was killed. And so you count the day he was crucified. And I know some people say they don't count Wednesday, which in the Wednesday crucifixion theory, when he was crucified on Wednesday, they don't count that. And I definitely think that the day he was crucified should be counted as day one, starting the night before when he was basically kidnapped by the chief priest and held captive. And then let's see, what else do we have? The 16th day of Nisan was predicting the resurrection, which would be about April 5th this year. Understanding the sign of the 3 days, which is speaking of the second advent, connecting the first with the second. Pastor Murray concurs with me here. And so that's a quick overview of that study. So some good stuff up here that we've been working on. And we do have some current events going on right now in the world. We have basically peace, peace, peace. And I think with the silver cup indicators indicating that financial system that Joseph took control of in Egypt. He took control of the financial system. He took all the finances of the then world, Egypt, and put them together and basically provided for his brother so that the name of Israel would be remembered and that God did free them from that oppression. And so we have that same pattern, and the silver cup is just the indicator that that same pattern is happening again. And I believe as far as current events go, we're looking at the moves that Trump is making, pulling out of NATO, pulling out of the UN, pulling out of the Green New Deal, creating a different money system based on stablecoin. When all this comes to fruition, it will be indicated by the price of silver, most likely. So that is the cup that Joseph uses to not only indicate who is really in control, that God is in control, but he mockingly tells his brothers when he's in disguise that this is the very cup that he divines with. So he's using a play on words. They think he's a pharaoh divining in the cup when really the cup is the symbol of his divine connection with the true God and how the true God gave him the dream. And he knew his brothers would come over from when he was 17 to when he was 30. So 15 years. He knew his brothers would come. He knew God's word. He had to wait 15 years for that prophecy to come to pass. So we today need to be patient, even though it seems like we've been waiting a couple years for this prophecy to come to pass, for silver to indicate to us the change in the new system. But we need to be patient. Joseph waited 15 years. We can wait a similar amount of time. God's word will come to pass exactly as it is written. So now I'm going to get to the Bible study in Joshua. Now we start chapter 13 out with basically the promised land is taken over, except for a certain area in the promised land, which they never took over. They were supposed to, but they never took it over. So let's see here. We have Oh, I have this set on Psalm. Let me set it on Joshua. So this is the companion Bible in the middle here. There we go. So we have verse 1 and we have the outline. That's chapter 12, which we did last week. And this is just a list of cities that Joshua took over. He took over the promise. He took over the promised land. And now in verse 13, we come to Joshua being stricken in years, old and stricken. And the companion Bible notes he is 101 years old. So, God does take note in numbers. He takes note in timelines. He takes note in the age, the passing of time, and he marks it with his ruler, with his divine ruler. I think the Jubilee year system is the marker that he's using. And so Joshua is 101. And remember, Joshua was a boy back when they first spied out the land 40 years before that. So I guess he wasn't a boy. If he was 101 here, he was probably closer to 60 or 50 years old. Just kind of guesstimating in my head because it had to be 40 years and they were in the land probably another almost 9 years completing the Jubilee basically. So his age would end this current Jubilee, which when you count from Adam would be the 80th Jubilee. Now this is a different count than most people count when they're using the King James Bible chronology. When you use the Septuagint chronology, you have more time given to the patriarchs. They lived almost 1,000 years and they had their children at 200, 100 years old, but mostly like 200 or 300 years old is when they had their children in the Septuagint, which would make the time of Adam about 5,000 BC. And if you count from the time of Adam and you start with the Exodus and you count backwards 80 Jubilees, you come up to about 5,325 BC as being basically the time of Adam's birth. And I think it's very possible that this Jubilee was a celebration of the creation of Adam before he fell. And so this chapter is very special because now we have Joshua being old and stricken in years. And I'm going to pull up the Septuagint here. Joshua was old, being advanced in years, so that the Lord said to Joshua, "You have become advanced in years, and there is much land remaining to be captured." So, what is the number 13 in biblical numerics? It is rebellion. So, God told them, "You still have much land to be possessed." Will they possess the rest of the promised land at this time? And the question will be answered in this chapter. And you'll see that they did not go and possess this land that God commanded them to possess, even unto this day, even unto our day and our generation. So we think about the 80th Jubilee from Adam, and we're at the 150th Jubilee from Adam. And we can see how the timeline appears to be completed all the way from Adam, 150 Jubilees. And it might be time for that promised land to finally be conquered. And this relates specifically to the return of the Lord, because he is coming to measure Jerusalem. And so that is written in Zechariah. I think I might have it pulled up, maybe not. Zechariah chapter 2. There's this angel. I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Oh, what's that about? Then said I, whither goest thou? Where are you going with your measurement rod? What are you doing with that measurement? Remember, it's measured in numbers. That's how God is measuring. When he measures the earth, you know a change is coming.
Right, not much.
Oh, somebody's got a mute. I don't know. Oh, that's Jeff. Okay. Sorry, he's muted. Uh, so with the measuring line in his hand. So whenever God measures, that's the time when a big change is coming. Something is coming. He measures things, he measures time, he's measuring the space. He's looking at what's going on in Jerusalem. And remember that promised land that he wanted his people to possess, but they never, ever possessed. And so that's what we're looking at is the rebellion in this chapter, the time in which they did not possess the promised land. So here we are at the 101st year, which I think is a significant time marker in the Bible, because you have 100 being the completion. 100 is the number of completion, and the 101st seems to be the start of a new cycle, if you will. I probably need to look that up and research that. I would probably research that. That would probably take me 10, 20 minutes to research just that fact of the 101st year, where it is in the Bible, what is it significant of. I'd probably look it up in numbers in scripture. But this is a time shift. We're moving into a different time. And comparing it with today, we have this time of rebellion coming. What am I speaking of? When a supernatural angel comes to the earth with angelic beings, hordes of angelic beings with him, the people of this earth are not really expecting that type of antichrist. They are expecting an antichrist to rise from humans, from among the mobs of the earth, if you will. Rise in power. It's a slow, gradual process that they're not expecting supernatural arrival on spaceships and jumping from mountain to mountain. They're not expecting that. And that kind of arrival will cause them all to believe that he is really Jesus. Unless you know, unless you're sealed in your mind that there's a rebellion, an apostasy. Oh, somebody else has got to mute. Rhonda, I'll mute her. Oh, she muted. Okay. So if you come in late, try to mute. So anyway, this is okay. So rebellion. What we have here is the whole world is going to go into apostasy, apostasia. They're going to see a supernatural being, and because of their lack of understanding of the Bible, they're going to believe that it is truly the Christ, and they're going to rebel away from the true Christ, and they're going to any kind of thanksgiving and praise that they were giving to the true Christ is going to cease or stop. And this is where you get Daniel 9:27. The time when the sacrifice and the oblation ceases. That's that arrival. That's the arrival of Antichrist in the middle of a 7-year period, which is now a 5-month period that he arrives in the middle of. So we know this because that's what Daniel 9:27 prophesies. It's going to happen in the middle of that time period. So, and that's the apostasy, that's the rebellion. And so here, all these lands and that were never conquered are going to be conquered by Antichrist first. And then the true Christ arrives and brings us back to the promised land. So verse 2, this is the land that yet remaineth, all the borders of the Philistines and all Geshuri. So what does Geshuri mean? I'll look it up really quick. Geshuri, the inhabitants of Geshur. I saw one meeting say oil press. I go back to the first one. It's like they're not gonna. Oh, I can look it up in the Strong's Concordance. See, Gesher from 1650. Proud beholder. So I've never looked that name up before. Proud beholder. And so what's coming? Satan the Antichrist is the proud beholder. That he's going to come and claim the land first before the true Christ. At the sixth trump, Antichrist is coming. He is that proud beholder. Verse 3, from Sihor, which is before Egypt. And it's interesting that we're mentioning Egypt because they just came out of Egypt, and that means dark. So from there, which is before Egypt. So I would like to think of time, darkness, the land will be dark. It says in Joel chapter 2, that the day of the Lord is at nigh at hand. In verse 2, a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness as the morning spread upon the mountains. A great people and a strong, there hath not ever been the like. Has supernatural angels ever come to the earth as a ruler? Well, they did in Noah's day, but since then the humans have never faced supernaturals before and interacted with them openly. Neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. So that points forward to the final generation. And if you look at their arrival here, it's not secret. So this is why we know they're going to arrive with Satan halfway through the 5 months as a big flashbang moment, if you will. Why do I say that? Because in Joel here in chapter 2, verse 3, a fire devours before them. So that's kind of obvious. And behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them. So it's untouched. But behind them, everywhere they go, is desolation, a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing is going to escape them. So they're not going to be wimps. They're not going to come hiding. They're going to come and desolate. In other words, complete deception to the people that don't have the seal of God in their forehead. And then we have in verse 4 in Joel, the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses. So they're going to be on ships, I think. And as horsemen, so shall they run. And in verse 5, like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap. Well, how does one leap from one mountain to another? Well, it's not a chariot, it's a ship. And like the noise of a flames, this is a very noisy thing. If you were producing a movie of the scene, it would have to be noisy, not quiet, not secretive, but obvious, blatant, and loud and deceptive. And like the noise of a flame of fire that devours the stubble. If you can imagine that devouring sound as strong people set in battle array, they're coming. So from Sihor, which means dark, and it reminds us of that day of the Lord, starts out with darkness. But when the Lord arrives, the sun comes up with healing in its wings, which is the sun rays. Even unto the borders of Ekron northward, which is counted to the Canaanite 5 lords of the Philistines. This is interesting that we have 5 kings here again. And I wonder if the companion Bible picks up on this. A prince. Lord is serene, a prince. First occurrence. Interesting. The first occurrence of something in the Bible is something that helps us interpret. So it makes me want to look at the Septuagint. Let's see what it translates, this 5 lords. from the left of it is calculated for the 5 provinces of the Philistines. Again, you have kind of the 5th trump, the 5 months, the start of it. This is the first occurrence. These 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gazathites, the Ashdothites, which is a false god, the Ashkelonites, the Gittites, and the Ekronites. That's 5. Ekron is a word that means to be torn up by the roots. Also the Avites. So let's see what the Septuagint has. Gaza and Ashdod, Ashkelon and Gath, Ekron, as well as the Avium. It is calculated for the 5 provinces of the Philistines. Gaza and Ashdod, Ashkelon. So we've got Gazathites, Ashdod. So it's got Gazathites and Ashdothites as 2 separate groups. The Ashkelonites, which is the same word as Ashkelon, that means fire of infamy. This word Ashkelon. How do I know that? Because that's from Zechariah 9. Zechariah 9. And I'm pretty sure I put a note here. I pray I put a note. Because if you look here, oh, that's Zechariah 1. I was so confused. Had to turn to the right chapter. Okay, so if you look here at the cities, right here, Ashkelon shall see it. What is Ashkelon looking at? Look over here. Look, Ashkelon. Ashkelon, Gaza. Oh, interesting. Interesting. We have the same cities. Gaza, Ekron. Look, there's Ekron. If I could highlight that one. Whoops. I like to highlight so I know I've been there. Now in Zechariah 9, we've got Gaza, Ekron, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and the Philistines. So that is 5. And what are they looking at? What are all these cities? What are they gazing at? What's going on? Well, Tyre is having a dumpster fire, if you will. Now remember, Tyre is identified in the Bible for us. It's defined for us. They were very wise, right? They built a Ponzi scheme of money. No, well, yeah, they did. Verse 3, and Tyre built herself a stronghold, okay, and heaped up silver as the dust. Who are the people that own all the silver and own all the gold? So I'll give you a bigger hint. Uh, who owns the London Comex? Could these be this modern day city of Tyre? Control the Vatican, control Washington, D.C. Who are these hidden lords? Who are these people that call themselves Lord Rothschild, Lord Mendelssohn? Oh, really? They think they're lords? Do you think God honors them? I say no. So if you go back to Joshua, he's counting. How many lords, how many people think they're lords? It's like 1, 2, these same cities. So what happens to Tyre? Do they win? Do they control the world? Does their money scheme that they built, their stronghold, their Jericho, does it succeed? Well, let's read about it in verse 4. Behold, the Lord will cast her out, and he will smite her power into the sea, and she shall be devoured with fire. Huh. That's really interesting imagery. If you look at Revelation chapter 8, the 2nd trump, we have almost the same imagery, a mountain on fire cast into the sea. So that's what Ashkelon looks at. Ashkelon means fire of infamy. And Ekron, uprooted. and Gaza and Ashkelon. Oh, Ashkelon means fire of infamy. These are the same cities that Joshua never took over. It's almost like modern day uh, um, children of Israel, which are mostly found in Europe and America and Canada and the rest of the Christian countries. Um, they have allowed this Tyre and all these 5 cities to take over their own land, their, the world itself. These 5 cities, these people that call themselves Lord, who would have the audacity to put that in front of their name? I know no Christian I know would say, my name is Lord, blah, 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 because it's blasphemy. How dare they? And so we have the same play out today. Our people are allowing these 5 lords to control the world. And that's what happened here. Joshua was an old man. He was tired of fighting. Here we have them, the same 5 that are mentioned in Zechariah 9. So, verse 4, from the south, now he's talking about all the land of the Canaanites and Mira, that is beside the Sidonians. And Mira, it means, cave, den, or hole. That again reminds me of the Kenites because they hide themselves in the caves of the rocks. Numbers 24. If you don't believe me, we'll go to Numbers 24. I think it's verse 24. Oh, that's the ships of Chittim, so I got to scroll up a teeny weeny bit. Verse 21, and I looked on the Kenites and took up his parable. Now, what's a parable? That's prophecy. You have to understand that it's prophesied what's going to happen to these people. And said, strong is thy dwelling place. Boy, you got it made. You got the best houses. And you put your nest in a rock. And that's where I thought of this cave, den, hole. Nevertheless, the Kenites shall be wasted, and Asher shall carry away the captive. So what is coming for this Kenite? Are they going to retain this power? Maybe for a moment when Antichrist is here, they will. Because they call themselves lords, and when their Lord shows up, he's going to recognize them as his own. These are my babies, is what he's going to say. That is beside the Sidonians. Sidon is Zidon, unto Aphek, to the borders of the Amorites. Aphek means, sorry if I'm pausing to look these up, I just think strength. Their strength, their power. We have a very powerful group here. Verse 5, and the land of the Gibeonites and all Lebanon toward the sun rising. Interesting, it says toward the sun rising. It's marking the point of where the sun rises, which is a theme in Joshua. They noticed exactly when the sun rose, where it rose on that horizon. Where exactly did it rise? Because when it would go a little bit north and go as far as it could, that was called the solstice, or the day the sun stood still. That was known as the sun standing still day. And then that summer, June 21st. So they knew exactly, the ancients were watching the sun do this dance back and forth on the horizon every day, every year. From Baal, which means Lord, Lord of Gad. That's an interesting name because Gad is a tribe of Israel. Lord of Fortune. Again, who has all the fortune? Who has all the money? Tyre and the Kenites. They call themselves lords. Under Mount Hermon, onto the entering into Hamath. Again, Hamath is a Kenite connection as well. Pastor said that is one of their, I forgot, if I click on it, let's see. Numbers, Rahab and Hamath is one of the heads of the Kenites tribes. I think it's in Jeremiah where it's mentioned. That's another Bible study, but again, we're seem to be identifying a group of people here. They're controlling the promised land, and they're controlling the world today. They call themselves lords. Verse 6, all the inhabitants of the hill country from Lebanon unto Misrephoth Maim. I think I recognize this name. We looked it up. Burnings of water. That's an interesting burnings of water. What's going to happen to them? Like a mountain on fire cast into the sea. It's their judgment. Their judgment is coming. The burnings of the water. I also think of war when I hear this name. Like the Straits of Hormuz. And all the Sidonians, them will I drive out from before the children of Israel. What is this? Is this a promise from God? So do you think that God is going to go back on his promise and not drive them out? No, he's not going to go back on it. He's going to do this. This is a promise from God. And if you look at the Septuagint, it's even stronger language. I will destroy them from before the presence of Israel. Has that happened? That's my question. Did that happen when Joshua was alive? Or is that more of a promise for us today? Only divide thou it by lot unto the Israelites for an inheritance, as I have commanded you. Verse 7. Now we come back to the division of the tribes. And I wanted to pull up a map here, which I think I have down here. So I'm going to pull this map up so you can see it. Now, therefore, divide this land of Israel, for an inheritance unto the 9 tribes. Why does it say 9? And half a tribe. So 9.5 tribes. Why does it say 9.5? Because 2.5 tribes already got their land. So hopefully you can see this map here. It's a map of Israel if you can't see it. And off to the side here, you have Manasseh at the top. Look at the very top. You have this is Manasseh, but so is this. This is Manasseh too. So this is half the tribe of Manasseh. It's on the east side of Jordan. Okay. So before they go into the promised land, okay, these tribes, Gad, 1, Reuben, 2, and half the tribe of Manasseh, they got their land. So how many tribes were left? 9.5 tribes were left. So we're already in Joshua chapter 13, and we're still waiting on 9.5 tribes getting their land, if you will. And that's an important point because the Apostle Paul is going to reference the final 7 tribes that get their land. But he's not going to, so we're going to mention that in chapter 18 of this book of Joshua, when the final 7 tribes get their land. So I want to try to note in this when the next bunch get their land. Because God is noting who's getting what when. In verse 8, with whom the Reubenites, now remember, that was, I got to look at the map again. I think Reuben it was half the tribe of Manasseh, Gad, pull up the map, and Reuben. So Reuben already got their land, okay? The whole tribe. And Mount Nebo is in the land of Reuben, which I think is important. I'm going to say why later, though. Let's see. Reubenites and Gadites have received their inheritance, which Moses gave them, beyond Jordan eastward, so on the east side, even as Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. So Moses gave it to them, I guess. Even before they got there, he's like, yeah, you guys are going to get the land on the east, okay? And then in verse 9, from Ar that is upon the bank of the river. I wonder what Ar means. A roar, ruins. Arnon, and the city that is in the midst of the river, and all the plain of Medeba unto Dibon. And Arnon means rushing stream. Oh, so it's a river. And verse 10, and all the cities of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, which reigned in Heshbon, unto the border of the children of Ammon. Now, if you remember Ammon, he was the son of Lot. He was the son of incest, getting his land taken away from him. Verse 11, and Gilead is that healing ointment. It means a rocky region. You know, the balm of Gilead came from there. And let's see here. It says a mountainous region bounded by the west by the Jordan, on the north by Bashan, and on the east by the Arabian plateau, and on the south by Moab and Ammon. So they're there. Sometimes called Mount Gilead or the land of Gilead or just Gilead, divided into north and south Gilead, a city, the people of the region, son of Machir and grandson of Manasseh, father of Jephthah, a Gadite, rocky region, and the border of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and all the Gesher meant the proud ones, remember? And all Mount Hermon. There's a lot of mystery with Mount Hermon being the place where the fallen angels fell. And I don't know if that's true, but it's interesting that it's being brought up here, that it's going to be taken over by Israel. And all Bashan unto Salca, and Salca means migration. It's very interesting. And all the kingdom of Og in Bashan, this is verse 12, which reigned in Ashtaroth, and in Edrei, who remained of the remnant of the giants. Do we have giants today? Well, metaphorically, we do. The financial system, controlled by the Kenites, looks like a giant. Looks impossible to beat. But remember, they call themselves lords, and they are not, but mere men. For these did Moses smite. It's interesting it says Moses here and not Joshua, and cast them out. And then verse 13 of chapter 13. Nevertheless, the children of Israel expelled not the Geshurites. Uh-oh. Huh. They didn't fulfill the commandment of God. Nor the Maacathites, which let's see what that one means. Pressure. Literally, she has pressed. Interesting. But the Geshurites and the Maacathites dwell among the Israelites until this day. And see the trouble they cause even to today. Pressure. Put pressure on them, causing trouble. Only unto the tribe of Levi he gave none inheritance. The sacrifices of the Lord God of Israel made by fire are their inheritance, as he said unto them. So this is also going to carry over into the millennial time. The Levite priests will not inherit land. They're going to inherit the Lord. They're going to be with the Lord inside the temple, as it is written in the book of Ezekiel in chapter 44. Verse 15, and Moses gave unto the tribe of the children of Reuben inheritance according to their families. So Reuben was that one on the east of the river. And 16, and their coast was from Aror, that is on the bank of the river Arnon. So let's see if that map has any of that. And the city that is in the midst of the river, and all the plain by Medeba. So that is Reuben. So there must be these small rivers down here in the south part next to the Dead Sea. And then verse 17, Heshbon and all her cities there are in the plain. You know what's interesting is Mount Nebo is there. I think Mount Nebo means prophet, knowledge. Knowledge is given to God's elect, special gift. As your wherever the feet, the sole of your feet land, that will be given to you if you are God's people. And Bamoth Baal, that looks like an interesting name. The great high place, and Beth Baal Meon, and verse 18, and Jehazah and Kedemoth and Mephaath. I think these are all the cities Reuben's getting. And Kirjathaim, which you'll see that it's like double, it's a double, two cities. Two cities. It just makes me think Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities. Two cities that are alike, that are kind of twins, are going to be conquered in the latter days. And Sibmah and Zerath Shahar in the mount of the valley. And Beth Peor, which Beth Peor means house of Peor. I tried to look that one up before. 64, 65. Peor means cleft. And then again, that reminds me of the Kenites. They hide in the cleft of the rock. And Ashdoth Pisgah. And Pisgah is I think that takes us back to Numbers. I think if you go back to Numbers 24, Pisgah is in there. Is one of the locations. Let's see, Pisgah. So you got Deuteronomy and Joshua. I don't know why it looks familiar to me. Slopes of Pisgah, and Pisgah means cleft. Okay. And Beth Jeshemoth. And Beth Jeshemoth means house of the desolation. Gee, I wonder who that is. I mean, the desolation, the house of the desolation, that would be the Kenites again. And then we got verse 21, and all the cities of the plain and all the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites. Let's see, which reigned in Heshbon. And Heshbon, I think that word meant stronghold. Stronghold. There's a stronghold even today coming out from that place. Whom Moses smote with the princes of Midian, Evi, and Rechem. Moses, going back to Moses, all the way back. Now, Joshua's 101. Moses would be like 180 if he were still alive at this time. And Hur and Reba, which were dukes of Sihon, dwelling in the country. Verse 22. So I think we just have, we got to do 33 verses. That's interesting. 22. Balaam, also Balaam, the son of Beor, the soothsayer. Am I in Joshua? Yes. Beor, the son, so that's going back to Numbers 24. The story of the donkey. Did the children of Israel slay with the sword among them that were slain by them? So these are the cities the children of Israel did slay. So if you go back to Numbers 24 and the story of Balaam, Balak the king wanted Balaam to curse Israel. And I can't help but think of today how he wanted him to curse Israel. And what did he do? He turned around and he cursed the Kenites. So the Lord is going to bless Israel. Just like he says in Numbers 24, he's not going to curse Israel. But as long as the Kenites are in control, they're kind of like stopping the blessings. So if their cup of control is taken away, then the Lord can again bless Israel. Unfortunately, this sets up perfectly for the deception of Antichrist. So, um, so we have a remnant here of going back to Numbers in the days of Moses and prophecy of what's going to happen to the Kenites, even spoken of today. In verse 23, and the border of the children of Reuben was Jordan, and the border thereof, this was the inheritance of the children of Reuben after their families, the cities and the villages thereof. So we got Reuben done. That's one tribe. And verse 24, and Moses gave inheritance unto the tribe of Gad. Now remember, this is the second tribe that was on the east side of Jordan, even unto the children of Gad according to their families. Verse 25, and their coast was Jazer and all the cities of Gilead. Jazer means helped. And half the land of the children of Ammon. So the children of Ammon get their land split up unto Aror that is before Rabbah. I think because the Reubenites got the other half. And verse 26, and from Heshbon unto Ramath Mizpah, which I forgot Mizpah, what that meant. High place of the watchtower. And from Betnim, which, well, that's interesting. That means pistachio nuts. I've never seen that before. That's a territory of Gad. And from Mahanaim unto the border of Deber, which means sanctuary. Verse 27, and in the valley, Beth Aram and Beth Nimrah, house of the leopard. There's a lot of Revelation imagery coming up here. House of the leopard. Place of height is Aram. And Succoth and Zaphon, the rest of the kingdom of Sihon, king of Heshbon, Jordan and his border, even unto the edge of the sea of Kinnereth, on the other side of Jordan eastward. So we're still on the east side of Jordan. We haven't even gotten to the land of the other 9.5 tribes. Verse 28, this is the inheritance of the children of Gad after their families, the cities and their villages. Okay, we're going back to the map. Just want to pull it up again. You got Reuben down here in the lower right. You got Gad, and that's what we're going over, is all this territory. And the city of Ammon is being split in half given to Reuben, half given to Gad. And then I think I read 28. 29, and Moses gave. Now, it's interesting it says Moses gave. It's like Joshua's, even though Moses is long gone, he's still considered the controller of the inheritance, the distributor of the inheritance. Moses gave inheritance unto half the tribe of Manasseh. So now we're getting to the final tribe that has power on the east side of Jordan. And it is pretty far north. It's further north than I thought. And if you look, it's like almost parallel with Tyre, which is very interesting. So you got Manasseh up there at the top. And we're not talking about this little piece of Dan. Dan is a wild tribe. It's like a serpent and an adder, by the way. Most of Europe is covered by cities named after Dan. Denmark, the Dnieper, the Danube. They went everywhere in Europe. They were sailors. So these little pieces of Dan here are kind of irrelevant. Although they're going to be described and they're going to be given possession of their land as well. And this was the possession of the half tribe of the children of Manasseh by their families. Verse 30, and their coast was from Manahaim, all Bashan, all the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan. So they could take control of the land of the giants. That's interesting. And all the towns of Jair, which are in Bashan, 60 cities. And Jair means villages of Jair. So plural from the modification. I'm trying to find out. Forested, whatever that means. In verse 31, and half Gilead. So now this city, Gilead, is being split in half and given to the half tribe of Manasseh. And Gilead, I think, is where the balm of Gilead came from, the healing ointment. And Ashtaroth and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og and Bashan, were pertaining unto the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh. Interesting that Manasseh gets this Gilead. Even to the one half of the children of Machir by their families. So even his one of the family's sons are split families are split in half. So Manasseh keeps being split in half, and their families split in half again. A lot of people think America pictures Manasseh. And it's interesting because we split off from Great Britain. And still trying to split off from Great Britain to this day. And the money system that the Kenites have instituted in London, which is kind of what we were talking about in the current events before the lecture started. We were just chatting about all the control that's coming out of London, specifically from the financial system of the Kenites that reside there, that make the queen and the king bow down to them. And they can't have to take their shoes off, to come into that city of the Kenites, because they call themselves lords. So don't forget that, the 5 lords. Verse 32, these are the countries which Moses did distribute for inheritance in the plains of Moab. Remember, Moab is destroyed. Moab, and the destruction of Moab is fascinating in Jeremiah 48 in the King James Bible. Fascinating. So we just briefly touch on it here. In the book of Jeremiah, we have a whole litany of things, details that you don't want to read over. The old Moab destruction, because I believe it's related to this lords and ladies, so-called ladies, on the other side of Jordan, by Jericho, eastward. Verse 33. Now, Levi gets its own special little verse. Isn't that cool? But unto the tribe of Levi, Moses gave not any inheritance. This was a decision that was made 40 years ago. Think about that. They're not expecting to get any land at all. The Lord God of Israel was their inheritance, as he said unto them. It's a special inheritance for that tribe. They don't get any land. Wonder where they're going to live. So let's look at the map, see if it has anything about the tribe of Levi. Let's see here. I wonder if that balm of Gilead is there. I'm going to look that up before I let you guys go. We'll just close with the balm of Gilead. The balm of Gilead. Where was it located? There is no balm in Gilead. Jeremiah 8:22. There is no balm in Gilead. There is no physician there. Why then is not the health of the daughter of my people recovered? And that's the land that I believe Manasseh gets. Whoops, wrong button here. Ramoth Gilead. Yeah, The balm of Gilead would be found, I think, within the tribe of Manasseh. The healing ointment that heals. There is a deadly wound coming that there is no ointment to heal. No balm of Gilead will heal. That's in Jeremiah 46. Go up into Gilead and take balm, O virgin daughter of Egypt. In vain shalt thou use many medicines, for thou shalt not be cured. It's a deadly wound. The nations have heard thy shame, for thy cry hath filled the land. For the mighty man hath stumbled against the mighty, and they are both fallen together. And what happens next? The king of Nebuchadnezzar comes in and takes over, which pictures the antichrist. So there you have a picture in Jeremiah 46 of the balm of Gilead. The great healing ointment is not found and doesn't cure. I would like to look that up in a dictionary. Balm. Let's see what the dictionaries have. Balsam, aromatic resin or gum, widely used in the ancient Near East for cosmetic and medical purposes. Egyptians used them for embalming. Despite the widespread usage, balm is difficult to identify. Ancient writers refer to balm by a variety of names, which adds to the difficulty of identification. Yeah, let's click on that. I'm sorry it's so tiny. It's even tiny for me. If I can get it a little bigger. Let's see here. Most ancient references seem to be to the resin from balsam modernendron. I've never seen this word before. Opal balsam or balm of Gilead. At times, the reference seems to be to this word, Egyptica delisle, a small shrub that still grows in North Africa and exudes a sticky resin used for medicinal purposes. In another place, the mastic tree seems to be referred to. A yellow aromatic resin was extracted from the mastic tree by cutting the branches. Balm of Gilead, a substance known in the ancient world for its medical properties. That's interesting. I think that would be a study in itself, the balm of Gilead and how it was given. So where we're going to go next in the book of Joshua is chapter 14. And I think trying to pull Joshua back up here in my companion Bible so I can give you a quick outline. Here's a quick outline. Looks like the land was allotted by Moses in the companion Bible from chapters 13 through 14. And then in chapter 14 through 17, we're going to get the allotment of the land by Joshua. So it sounds dry, but to me it's interesting. The names, what they mean, how it was allotted, what was not allotted. It's all very interesting. And then in chapter 18, we get the great resolution where all the land is allotted to all the tribes. And we get that verse that Paul quoted in the New Testament about the 7 tribes getting their plots of land in that time. And so that's, to me, this is very exciting because it's all prophetic of today and it's all an overlay to today. And I'm going to close it there. Just keep the video short and let me know in the comments if you have any questions and I'd be glad to answer them or do a study on the balm of Gilead. I think that would make a great study for the future. God bless everybody and know that the Lord loves you and you're special to him and he's made you different than everybody else, just like he made your thumbprint. And tell him that you love him today. Thank you, and I'll talk to you later. And I can hit stop record.